Hi, my name is Michael Waitze and welcome back to ATP. Technology decisions at scale are never about a single monumental shift. They're about a series of small, calculated choices that define a company's competitive advantage. It used to be that cloud migration was seen as inevitable, but Agoda seems to have taken a different path, managing an enormous on-prem infrastructure with hundreds of thousands of CPU cores. But why? And what can other companies learn from this? Agoda is also redefining how businesses integrate artificial intelligence into existing products and using generative AI to drive massive efficiency gains, saving years of employee time. To explore all of this, we are joined today by Idan Zalzberg, the Chief Technology Officer at Agoda, to learn what a CTO does, how to build a scalable, reliable platform for millions of travelers, and why companies might think twice about embracing the cloud. But before we get to that, let's have a quick word from our sponsor. Before we jump in, let's thank the sponsor of this episode, Dr. Tech. Dr. Tech can help you build your e-commerce store and start selling quickly online and on social media in just a few days. And Dr. Tech stores are gorgeous, modern, and responsive. They are fully customizable and simple to use. Dr. Tech stores have hundreds of included optimizations that will help you sell more online, and a support team that can answer all of your questions. With Dr. Tech, there are no hidden costs, no commissions on sales, no add-ons to buy. Everything is included in one simple subscription. So go to hello.dr.tech/ATP to get a free trial and start building your store. You can find the link in the description below. Also, Dr. Tech is offering a special deal to the listeners of the Asia Tech podcast. After your free trial, you can get your first full month for only $1. To get this deal, simply type ATP into the live chat and they will send you a special promo code. Thanks again to Dr. Tech for sponsoring, and now let's get back to the show. Idan, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. And I love the fact that you come into the studio because I do feel like these in-studio recordings are way better than the remote recordings are good, but this is better. I love being face-to-face. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
It's my complete pleasure. Okay, let's just jump right in. What does a CTO do, right? I think people may have a misconception about this. And should that CTO be coding?
Yeah, so great question. I ask myself the same every day.
I like it.
And I think it's a real thing, right? Like when we move in our careers, we don't necessarily understand what it means to be the next level of what we are doing. And it's always this ambiguity that also scares us sometimes to take the next leap. Yeah. So that's also been on my mind when I took the role. And all I can tell you is what I did is I'll do it the way I think it needs to be done, and the way that matches my approach. So what I'm going to say might not even necessarily be what everybody does, but it's what I do.
Fair enough.
So for me as a CTO, I have a few distinct things I can call out. So first of all, of course, there's the management of the team. And that's my first priority, right? I have a team. I have 2,000 people in my team.
I was going to ask. It's
Agoda.
A big team.
It's a big team. And my first priority is to make sure that team is healthy, is growing in terms of, hiring, but also in terms of making sure people have growth opportunities, they have learning, they are open. So the culture really derives from that, right? I want to make sure we have this open culture. Everybody can talk. Everybody can learn from each other. That's my top priority, first of all. Second, to the execution, right? We need to make sure we get stuff done and get the right stuff done. And a lot of the time, my role, unfortunately, is to be the one saying no.
Saying no.
Saying no, because it's, everything is exciting and we want to do so many things. There's so many things on the board, and taking all this energy and making sure that we, pick and choose the right things. Because often what you see if you're a bit like starting in your career, you say, oh, let's try this, let's do that. And it's cool, it's fun, but you have to think what happens 5 years down the line.
Right.
So a lot of my job is to always think, okay, but what happens 5 years down the line? And sometimes it means let's not go this route, because if we do it, we create a hurdle that might hit us in a few years, and sometimes vice versa, right? So something that seems like, oh, maybe it's a risk, maybe it's an opportunity, I don't know, but hey, think about what happens 5 years. This is a risk we need to take. This is an opportunity we need to exploit. So thinking very long term is the other thing, and eventually, I'm the bottom line, kind of like my role is to make decisions, right? If no one made a decision until it came to me, I have to make that decision, right? Because I report to the CEO. I'm not going to come to him and say, look, we can't decide between this language and that language. And on the tech stack, I need to be that kind of catch-all safety net of decision-making and making sure we move.
Right. So the second part to this is, should CTOs be coding? And should senior managers be coding as well?
Great. So, nothing I said was actually saying like, oh, I need to also code stuff, right?
Right.
But then actually I believe that it's very important and very impactful if you do. So I strongly recommend everyone in my team across all levels, including myself, to code. Actually,
why do you
quite
think
regularly.
So, yeah, why do
and
you
there's,
think so?
there's so many. I try to write down all the reasons. It comes to like 10 reasons. I would be like 10 reasons why you should continue code. But
Feels
I don't
like
like
a
this.
meme
This kind of lists. I'll tell you like the gist of it, right? So, and I think there's actually a real crisis today. There's a real crisis with management layer, and if you pick all these data points around the world with things happening to middle management saying, oh, we need to get rid of them in some companies, and how developers and how people often disregard, oh, my manager, they don't understand anything, right? Like, oh, I need to get through this manager. It's all politics. It's all show off. It's all just trying to be. How did we get to that?
How?
Right. So I think some of it, and maybe I'm building on my own kind of preferences, but I think some of it is that we forgot that we are eventually engineers first. Right. That's our profession. And something really bugged me like 20 years ago when I started to manage this here. You're not an engineer anymore. You're a manager.
So somebody actively told you.
Yeah. That was the time of the,
You're
in
done
the culture.
doing this.
Exactly. Forget about it. You're a manager now.
Right.
And to some extent, you need to be a bit shocked, right? Because your focus is the people now. And that's fair. That's
fair enough.
That's true. But your profession is an engineer.
Right.
And if you forget that, I think that's how we get to where we got in some places with what managers do and how they are perceived.
I want you to go on, but I want to agree with you because I want to say this. If your team is walking through the mud,
exactly,
and you're commanding them from a tower somewhere, you're not going to empathize with them enough to understand like what walking through the mud feels like. And I'm not saying coding is walking through the mud, but if they're having a problem, right? In a way,
yes.
In a way, all jobs are.
Exactly.
Right? But if your senior management's not walking through the mud with you, they have no way of knowing exactly what it's like. So when they tell you you're not doing this the right way, you're like, well, I got mud all over my shoes.
Exactly.
Right. Sorry. Go ahead. So what are some of the other reasons?
So that's perfectly exactly. A few of my reasons are exactly like that. Like, how can I ask people to trust me, from both sides? So if I have developers in my team, how can they trust my leadership if I have no idea what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
If I haven't picked up a sword or exactly. Went through the mud myself, how can they trust me? And not just theoretically, like truly, like, do I really understand them?
Right.
Do you really understand what your developers are going through?
Right.
If you haven't done it for years.
Right, for years. Because languages have changed, paradigms have changed, development strategies have changed, AI is there now to help, like all these things change. And if you don't know, you don't know.
For sure. And AI is also a good question about finding opportunities, right? So, there's this famous quote, not remember who, but it's very famous, right? If you show me, if you tell me, I forget. If you show me, I remember. If you engage me, I will learn, something like that.
Right.
So it very much applies here. So yeah, you can tell me, hey, AI and coding assistants, they're really great. You should bring it to your team. But when I tried it myself,
right?
Wow, right? And that that energizes.
Yeah, that energizes. Like, whoa,
because now I have the energy to go for it.
I just got a little chill, actually. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. And this is what I want my managers to have. I want the managers also to be not just understanding you as somebody that's going through something I'm not going through, but understanding you as someone going through something I'm also going through.
Right.
So that's just the engineering. Now let's look at the other side of it.
Go ahead.
My managers.
Right.
They need to trust me.
Right.
I tell them, we're taking this decision. We're going in a technological way. Theoretically, you could say architecture is not about coding, but it is.
It is, though.
It is
super
a generalization.
Right.
And if I'm not in the details, if I cannot really draw the line from the top architecture and what we think is a problem or not a problem, how we should build ourselves, to the developer eventually need to code in whatever TypeScript or Go or whatever. Then I'm just making like jumps.
Right.
And I'm making those jumps out of ignorance.
Exactly. Can I make an analogy? Do you mind? I think one of the reasons why the Golden State Warriors have been so successful in the National Basketball Association of the United States is because their coach is a former player who won a lot of championships. And he's had to deal with some of the biggest egos. I remember, he also loves basketball. He loves basketball. It's the same thing, right? Like, when you went to school, you loved computers. You just loved them. You were probably tinkering with them when you were a little kid. Go to bed, Idan. No, I'm still writing this thing, right? I'm making a game or whatever. And probably a lot of your team was like that too. So to tell you at some point, you're no longer qualified or you're no longer ability to do that, you're like, hey, I love this.
Yes.
And I think that's the same thing. So
and it's a great point because in some way you're calling my bluff. All this, like, I coded first and then I tried to reason it. Like what I just told you, all this reasoning came after I already was doing it.
Right.
Because realistically, I'm not going to stop coding. I don't want to.
Right, you can't stop.
I don't want to. I like it.
Right.
So, and I think that's like having like a big part of your job being something you love. Not that I don't like working with people, but if you cut off my access, to Git, it feels like you're severing something from me. And I want to sometimes be able to, I'm just going to code it, right? And that keeps me so passionate in all my discussions, whether I'm coding or not, that I think is also super important. I think that by itself is enough of a reason.
So to me, coding in a way is like magic, right? Because you can accomplish things in a way they're so, what's the right word? I want to say this the right way. It's so nuanced, right? And so beautiful that the joy that comes out of just accomplishing that is enough to keep you going every day.
It's almost unfair because you're stealing like thoughts that I had and never shared with anyone. So I don't know how you did it, but like this similarity to magic, probably not the first one thinking about it, but it's so strong, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to have a talk. I did it. When I was a kid, I wanted magic to be real, because I wanted to make things happen.
Right.
And in so many ways, how is that different?
It isn't.
From building technology?
It's not.
It's like there's no differentiation except the fact that instead of having a wand and talking in Latin, I'm using a keyboard and English and the other languages that we used. It's really the same. I make stuff happen.
Yeah.
And I used to bring my parents, when I was a small kid, to sit on my little bed and watch things happening on the computer. I was so excited because magic was happening.
Right.
So that's why we should never let that passion go.
I agree. And the one other thing I'll say is that there's always one wise guy on the team who says, you haven't coded in 10 years, man. You have no idea what's going on today.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's always one guy, right? Because he's better than you, he's smarter than you, right? And you're like, no, I actually wrote that thing yesterday. And that helps too from a management perspective.
It's true, and it's not even about calling them out because there's definitely better people in my team than myself.
For sure,
as
that wasn't
coders,
the point, but yeah.
But it's like, I will have that discussion with you. Like, explain to me, how does it work? Explain to me, how does the code? Explain to me why the way I'm suggesting is bad. Let's really bring it down. I never say to people, like, I'm the CTO, look at the title. Like,
I know better than you.
And shut up, It's never that. I should always be able to take the discussion. Okay, so let's open it up. Let's look at the code. Let's look at how it works. Explain to me exactly how it works. Right. And I'm sure you can convince me. And I get convinced often. But if I was always like, actually, oh my God, they're going to find out, I don't actually can have this discussion anymore because I'm so far away from it. Right. Then I will have to say, I'm the CTO here, so
you have to listen to me, maybe.
Yeah, find another place if you're not happy. And that's terrible discussion, right? So definitely, I think it also makes those channels open.
Let's talk about another really big topic.
Sure.
And that is cloud versus on-prem. So Agoda operates an enormous on-prem infrastructure. We talked about this before we started recording. What are some of the key factors that influence this decision over moving to the cloud, either completely or not at all, actually? Why do it on-prem? Because it's really complicated.
Correct. I think we had a huge advantage that we started so many years ago, like Agoda way before my time started, 20 years ago or so. And as such, at the time, the cloud wasn't a thing, right? So like they didn't really have an option. So it's more like we continuously, incrementally grew on-prem. So it's more like the question is, why didn't we move to the cloud? Right. But I don't want to call out, it's easier to not move to the cloud than it is to have like a setup on the cloud and says, let's repatriate it back to the on-prem. Because
that's really hard. We'll talk about that too.
That's harder. For sure.
Yeah,
that's harder than just staying on-prem, which we did.
Sure.
But we did make that a decision very consciously and continuously. So we keep assessing what there is on the cloud, assessing where we are, assessing how much it would cost us. And I can like the easy answer, the simple answer, the CEO answer is like it's way more expensive than what we do. What we do saves us tons of money.
Do you want to talk about David Hennemeyer Hansen? Because I was looking at some of this stuff. We talked about this again during the prep call. But I was looking at some of the stuff in the interim before you came, and he says it's not only cheaper, it's more efficient, but you also have more control over the machinery that you have. Yes. So you can always be sure that you are having the best machines that you can either afford or that you want to have.
Exactly. And I want to make it even a bit more gray in that. It's not 0-1. It's not cloud, yes, no.
Yeah, okay? Not at all.
Because I think if you, and I know Uber, for example, is moving some work to the cloud and whatnot. And I'm not like, oh my God, they lost it. It's like how you do it and how you maintain that control. What really bothers me is companies that don't only, we go on the cloud. We go on the cloud and everybody will use the services and everything will run on service. And they take a tiny, tiny thing and use a SaaS service for it. And like, it's a tiny, tiny thing. You can run it yourself and be in control. Like you're letting all these companies in total have control over where you're going.
Right.
If you want to change something, okay, call the account manager, hope you're a big enough account, wait until they roll it out, and they might get sold to some Google or something, and then they maybe close it, and then you'll have to migrate, and it's all out of your control.
Right.
So first of all, be in control of your technology. Now, if you want to run your servers yourself, or you want to get Google to run them for you or whatever, or you want to use this service or that service, go ahead. But do all these decisions one by one from a place of knowledge, not from fear.
Right. Yeah, and there's an ideology around it as well, right? I don't want to call it a religious thing because that minimizes it, but it feels like once people make that decision, they don't want to go back because they spent so much time and energy convincing people that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people are running hybrid installations of this stuff, right? Where some stuff is probably running in the cloud because it's just easier and faster and it's important but not that important. But the sort of high-level stuff, first of all, I think from a security standpoint, it's way better. I think this is something else that I've been reading as well. You get to control all of the security stuff too. Are there other things that you have learned from this that maybe other people that don't run on-prem stuff haven't learned?
So I think you touched on like the cost of it and a couple of things I want to say. So first of all, garbage in, garbage out applies to the cloud. So some companies have like a terrible setup because they are like maybe exist for a while. The technology is aging, and they think that somehow moving to the cloud, they will come out all clean. It's like, like a, so and it doesn't work like that. If you take a shitty setup, sorry for the
it's language, okay, no, it's okay,
and you run it on the cloud, you have a shitty setup on the cloud. That's what you ended up with. It doesn't fix you on the way.
Right.
So, and that actually is easier to move when your setup is clean. So one thing we learned, and one thing that was important to us, because if we are honestly putting things on the table, the biggest risk I have today is my talent. I need to maintain all the layers of technology. I need to have the people setting up servers. I need to have the people managing Kubernetes clusters, data platforms, all of this technology. I have to think about all of these.
Right.
I need to make sure I have strong experts in every field. Okay? So that's the fear. The fear really is that what happens if I lose the ability to maintain some of these very high-scale technologies.
Because if you don't have a group of people that knows like Kubernetes, let's say,
exactly.
If you've just outsourced that to some big cloud provider, when something goes wrong,
yeah.
either internally or externally, like who's going to fix it?
Yeah,
and how do you know how to fix it?
Just depend on their support, right?
Yeah.
So the way that we decided that we are staying on-prem, but we are maintaining fast portability. So what we are using, even though we're building on-prem, we are very stubborn to use protocols and technologies that are either exactly what the cloud does or parallel to it.
Right.
For example, we moved from HDFS to a proprietary S3 provider.
Okay.
So it's like S3 protocol compliant, and it's on-prem.
But this means that if you have to move to another S3 supplier, it's not automatic, but it's way easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh my God.
Right.
Because the problem is like if you lose the ability to do it yourself, or for some reason you want to invoke some, a cloud data center, the problem is not that it's like, we'll need 10 years, right? And that's actually like sometimes what it takes for companies at our size. So I don't know now if I will need to do it in 10 years. Right, and I want to know that I can do it faster, so I don't need to make the decision.
So this was a big problem, and you'll see this in a second. I worked at Morgan Stanley for years, and Morgan Stanley, one of its big technologists, was a guy. I can't remember if it was Ken Iverson. I think it was Keith. Keith is the son, but Ken Iverson was I think a Canadian computer scientist who created a language called APL. It was a little bit of a joke. It was called a programming language. And since Keith, I think, who was his son, was working at Morgan Stanley, and he was writing a lot of sort of new type of stuff, connectivity stuff. So Morgan Stanley did the first connectivity to the exchange and stuff, all in APL. And it was an interpreted language, right? So it was really fast. Anyway, the problem was not a lot of people knew how to use it or knew how to code in it. So when all those guys left and went to UBS, they're sitting there on this infrastructure. It was like, what do we do now?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it doesn't matter how powerful it is. This idea of what you call fast portability is actually really important.
Yes,
No?
I agree. And we're doing all the time this movement. We wrote our own log aggregator. We wrote our own telemetry, like metric store. But they talk now.
I like how you translated. You said telemetry, no, metric score.
Yeah.
so the rest of us can understand.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it.
Because yes.
I like it.
So we build those things, but originally we built them with some custom API. But what we did over the years, as OpenTelemetry was becoming more kind of the standard, we quickly tried to move to use OpenTelemetry, because now we know that, okay, if one time in the future we don't want to use this store, we just need to use any other store that supports OpenTelemetry. So this kind of protocols, and I don't care who wins. I don't care that S3 is like, came from AWS. I don't care. It's the winning protocol. That's it. The war is done.
Right.
So that's where we need to be. And by making sure we use standard protocols as much as possible, then I feel safer.
Right.
The other thing I think, if you talk about what we learned that is interesting, and you touched a bit about it with control. The problem in the cloud sometimes is that all these services are disconnected.
Yeah.
And if you want to do something that kind of binds through them and make assumptions and make little changes in everyone to create something super efficient, some kind of magic over there, it's super hard.
Because you don't control the way this thing communicates with this thing.
Exactly.
Right? So if you do it yourself, you can say, let's make this way more efficient because this is really important to us, where to everybody else it's generic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's almost like, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's super
where you
fun.
can just look at everything and say, I can touch every point that I want here and to make something better, right? And you need to be careful not to make too much of a mess. But sometimes you can find crazy kind of like, sick optimizations and things you can do because you have so much control, from like Istio and the Kubernetes kind of like control plane, how it connects with the observability plane, how it connects with the databases and the services running on it. And it's really fun because you're really making holistic view of how you think applications should run. And you're not kind of like just a unification of hypothesis of like 100 different companies that you have to now find like if there is even a line that goes through all of them.
Right. And again, this company may not care about communicating better with this company. So it's way better to do it by yourself. There was a myth, I think, or part of the mythology in the startup ecosystem 10 years ago, right, or 11 years ago, let's say, was that the cloud providers, AWS as a proxy, right, made it just so easy and so inexpensive to just like spin up a company for $5,000 was the number that people used, right? But do you think that they should still be running their own stuff on-prem?
So that's exactly what they did. They made it really, really easy to onboard.
Right.
And that's almost like,
question. Don't worry,
like giving drugs for free.
So that was my next question. That was my next question. So now you're reading my mind. I was reading yours before. But that's the other thing is, do you think they're doing this stuff a way to get them addicted to it so that later on
and I would do.
leave?
If I were a B2B business.
Would you though?
I would want people to onboard like
because they give it away for free.
Yeah, but even put money aside, just the easiness of it.
Sure.
Right? So like almost all services in the cloud are very easy to onboard. And it's very easy to put data in AWS and it's very expensive to take it out.
Yeah.
Right? So they make it easy and inexpensive to come in. And they have actually the incentive to make it hard to go out.
So, but if you look at big companies, and again, I may get some of the details of this wrong, and I don't remember exactly when Facebook started doing this, but I'm going to say 6 years ago, I don't know. They started building their own highly optimized data centers. But then they also started building their own highly optimized servers. Like they built all their own machines from scratch.
Yeah.
Because they're writing their own software. Yeah. And in a way, there's like a Facebook operating system. And they know how to run it so that it's optimized for their machines.
Yes.
Do you guys do the same type of thing?
We do not. I mean, we're not at that level. So we looked at this. And to be honest, we buy servers from HP and the likes. Their margin, it's not like we can cut away from their margin. Their margin is very low. What we can do is, like you're right, what we can do is we optimize to a certain workload that we happen to have in a way that will be better. To be honest, we're not there. Like, we're not big enough. This is like really is Facebook stuff. And if you go to Google, they build their own chips, right? All the way. Yeah. So like that's where like the most extreme example. We looked at it. We didn't see enough value in that. We do buy. There is quite a variety of servers you can buy.
Sure.
And you can optimize in that, choosing the right configuration and servers and storage and memory and all these things. Do we like have like a completely unique setup to us? We do not. But I think even the choice of like what servers you buy and the density you get out of it, and do you care more about space versus the power usage versus the cost per core on the server, how much cores to how much memory. These decisions alone are very impactful, even if you don't really, tinker with actual cards that been put in.
It still sounds like fun though.
It is.
Because it's a little bit of a puzzle. In
Exactly.
a way that's constantly being changed and adapted and iterated.
It's a huge optimization problem.
Yeah.
End to end, the entire company, right? And everything is at your kind of fingertips to play with as a CTO, which is like why I like my role.
I was going to say, this is the dream job for somebody who wants to tinker with technology.
Exactly.
What do you do? And this just popped into my head, right? Because I remember, again, when I was at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, we ran everything in the building, right? But we also had a disaster recovery site. We called it DRIP. I don't know if people still call it that. Disaster Recovery Implementation Plan. I don't know what it stands for. I can't remember anymore. But do you run dual installations of everything?
Yeah. So we have 4 data centers right now. 4.
Are they all in this region?
No. So one of them is in Europe and one of them in the US. Because also we have white labels on top of the Agoda platform today. Citibank, for example, and other actually big US bank in the US is using our platform. So we do actually have
for what?
For their travel platform. So actually, if you have their credit card.
So not internally at Citigroup.
No. Actual customers in the US
right.
of Citi and US Bank, for example, if they want to use their card for travel,
right.
then they go to the credit card kind of travel platform.
So you
and
white label that?
Ours. Yes.
So to them, it looks like it's a Citi platform.
Exactly.
But it's running all the back end. It's all in Agoda.
Exactly.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people know that at all.
Well,
actually.
yeah, here probably not, but they I mean, I don't know how much they highlighted, it runs
Powered by Agoda.
Yeah, we call it RTA, Rock Travel by Agoda. It's a big story of how we got to that kind of company, but it's our technology one-to-one.
That's super cool, actually.
Yeah. It's actually very exciting because it gives you a lot of challenges on how to build software as well, because it needs to be customizable. At the same time, it needs to run the big B2C business. So it's definitely made it very interesting for us at the tech team.
Yeah, I remember when we were building a new trading system at Goldman Sachs, and I was sitting on the trading desk, but I was the guy who kind of, I wouldn't say ran the technology development, but it was the thing that I was most interested in. And I love trading, but to be fair, I loved the tech in trading more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was always the guy on the desk who had to work with the IT team back then to kind of help them architect what it should look like. And I always wanted it to be as flexible as possible. And one of the things I would say was, there are multiple roads you can go down when you're building stuff. Try to make sure you're not going down a road that you have to come all the way back if you make a mistake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
Try to build it in a way, and I don't know this because I'm not a computer scientist, but try to build it in a way where even if you don't go down the right road, you don't have to go all the way back. You have to turn the car around, go back to the beginning and start over again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Bezos calls it the one-way door versus the two-way door, right? And, and it's very true, and I think, a lot of software development and all this agile and all these things are touching on that topic of how do I don't need to make big decisions? We hate big decisions, right? There's a famous Uncle Bob, I think they call him, that they said the most important thing an architect can do is delay decisions.
Right.
And the way you do it is by making sure that decision you're taking today is easy to regret.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's why I said in my intro, this is about small calculated choices. Exactly. Right, it's not about making massive decisions. We're going to turn this ship around and go the other way.
Yes,
it's probably never a good decision.
Correct, but you do want to have a vision.
That's the two things, right? Well, you want to go from here to there.
Exactly,
that doesn't change. But how you get there, it may be like this, it may be like this. I don't know, but I know where I want to go for the most part. Right?
For sure. So I care only about the long term.
Right.
And the short term.
Yeah.
I don't care about the mid term.
Yeah, it was the same thing for me. I wanted a new trading system that was super fast, super flexible, and super efficient. I didn't care how we got there. It's kind of the same thing.
Exactly.
Although what you're building is much more complex. Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So what are some of the biggest challenges or things when rolling out AI-driven features and services to such a large user base, right? Because you have millions of people using your service.
Yes. Yeah. So AI, a lot of people are like, this AI should be here by now, no? We had a wow moment, it passed.
You talk about the GPT moment.
Yeah, exactly. We had a GPT, it was a few years ago. Can we already have robots doing everything for us?
Can I interrupt you for a second? Because I feel and you know this, if you've been doing this for how long now? Not just the CTO thing, but you've been in the technology world for
20 years.
20 years, right? So I would say every 7 to 8 years, some new shiny piece of technology comes along and everyone's then data driven.
Yeah.
Right? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Or moving to the cloud kind of thing. Just one of these big things. Now it's everything's AI generated.
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But the reality is that you have to figure out how to use this technology and implement. That's what I want to know. Like, how do you get this in so that it's not just like a shiny new thing?
Exactly.
But it's actually an effective and efficient way to use it.
Exactly. And I want to say, like, I'm super bullish. I'm super bullish
Same.
on AI. I'm totally.
We use it every day in our business.
Yeah, like there's no question, and we are very heavy on it. But I want to call out and explain why it's so hard. So, what are we used to software to do? We used to that if I look at the software, I can tell you what it's going to do.
Right.
If I run the software...
But this is very nuanced and subtle. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
If I run the software, I can verify the result is correct.
Right, because I know what I expected before I hit the run.
And I can write an easy unit test to check.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
And if I run it multiple times, it will do the same thing.
It's very simple thing.
Now,
6 plus 5 is 11. I don't care if it's in base 2 or base 4 or base 12.
And you can run it 100 million times. It will always give you the same result. Computers are accurate and repetitive.
Right.
So all these things sound pretty trivial.
Right.
And none of them are true for AI. Right. And that's what it takes a while to get used to, because that blows your mind as a developer or any development team, because we get requirements, do something that does this. We're supposed to write code that we can verify that does this, and then we're done.
Right.
And that doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work.
So the biggest problem, the biggest issue is we call it evaluation. I think that's how it's called often in the industry, which is meaning, okay, I gave a task to the AI. How do I know that it's doing it well? And how do I know that if tomorrow I make a change, that change is actually going to make it do it better?
Faster, whatever it is.
Whatever, faster. What even better means is not trivial, right? Better, to whatever better means.
Right.
So this is really, really hard. And I think that's what really is like why there's such a big gap between a wow-ment. I can demo for you whatever you want. Sure. You want an assistant to choose bookings, it will take me a second. You want to have something that shows you which images are the nicest. 1 second. You want an automated customer support agent? 1 second. All these things I can demo for you in 1 second. But if you ask me when it's going to be, years. You know, it's going to take years to do this because this is where the gap is. The gap is in evaluation. I can't just be okay 1 time, 1 demo, 5 times, 6 out of 7 cases. I need to be okay all the time. I need 99% at least.
Uptime.
Right? Depends of the case, right?
Sure.
But and what success looks like. But I can't have my bots going around canceling bookings.
I thought this one was okay to cancel. Cannot be happening, right?
Yeah, like making mistakes. This hallucination is not funny when it's people's property, vacations. They're not funny. Even if you ask a question about a hotel, which you can do on our platform today, it's not funny if I tell you the room is non-smoking, but it is smoking. Right. It's not funny.
No.
So this is where it takes more time.
So how do you do that evaluation?
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, you have to build that muscle, and this is something we've been doing. And I think, our approach when we looked in this was that this is going to be big. This is going to be everywhere. So what I was strongly against is creating this isolated, these guys will do the AI.
Yeah.
Right? You have to think, how do I get everyone to do it?
This is another gigantic mistake that big companies make, right?
They try to isolate.
They try to isolate it and say,
Center of
that's
excellence.
the AI team.
Yeah.
Really?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Sorry.
You need everyone to do it. Maybe there's a team that helps, maybe that enables.
Right.
But everybody should be deep in their hands into it, looking at it, learning how to do it. Now we did 2 things. So first of all, we focused first on ourselves, on our employees.
Internally.
We called it the inside-out approach. And the reason was because you can move way faster. You can move way faster because the mistakes are not that expensive.
They're not fatal at all.
If I tell you, hey, the room is smoking, non-smoking, and you get really upset and it's not cool.
Right.
If I tell an employee, Agoda was founded in Japan in the 700s, they're they chuckle.
It is kind of funny, yeah.
And I think there's a problem here and they make it better.
Right.
So I get good feedback and I get understanding that this is just a tool. Because when I show it to a customer, they don't see it as AI. They see it as Agoda.
Yeah.
And when I show it internally, they understand it's a tool. So we created so many tools. Today we have 120 AI initiatives running, including everything, marketing, funnel, but also legal, people, developers, everything. So we really went very wide. We created a big hackathon just to bring it up. Because even originally it took people time to imagine. It took people time to imagine how this can change their life. Because, and the first day after it was called out, you come to someone at legal team, they wouldn't say, oh my God, this is changing everything. They needed time to imagine.
To figure out how am I going to use this?
Exactly.
Where does it fit in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we started building. And from building and from failing, we learned how to do it. We learned how evaluation should look like, what kind of metrics you can create. There's also there's a lot of literature about it, and we read all the time, we connect, we work with also other companies together to kind of share our learnings, but it's still a learning journey, but we are getting better.
Have there been any places where, like you said, this inside-out strategy, I think I completely agree with. You don't want to roll stuff out that could be fatal to customers, right, that are going to get angry and then go somewhere else to do something, right? It's like trying a new dish. You serve it to the waiter and waitress first, right, because it may be horrible.
Exactly.
But you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then when it's perfected, then you start bringing customers in, your best customers, right? And we used to do this all the time, again, at Goldman.
Sure.
When we did algorithmic trading, we'd give it to our smallest hedge funds. Because if it blew up on $5 million, not on $500 million, right? So I completely agree with this. But because you've gotten everybody involved, which again is a great idea, have there been any surprising use cases for you that you seem like, I may not have thought about that one kind of thing?
So there definitely has been quite a few cool ones. But after this was like a year and a half ago, after a while, like everybody already came up with everything to an extent. So I need to think what's really surprising.
That's okay.
I think some cool stuff in the legal department, like finding areas in legal contracts that might cause us issues.
Oh, right.
Just scanning them over and over, and if there's dates we're missing and stuff like that. So that was cool because it was kind of unexpected at the time. I think for developers, we see so much. We started using it for code reviews recently.
So can you talk about this? Because you mentioned this at the beginning of this recording, right? You were like, when I saw, like before I started using it, I was like, well, how is this going to work? But once you did it, you were like, whoa.
Yes.
So what does it do that's so cool?
So, I mean, these coding assistants, and we use third party, and we also build tools ourselves on top of it. So these coding assistants are pretty amazing these days. I think there's a good reason. So coding, there's so much to train on. It's all on the web. So they had a lot of and there's a lot of value in training specifically for it. So it's not that surprising that LLMs are good at it. Right. But they are actually very, very good at it.
Are they really?
Yes. And now with Cursor, with the new mode from Copilot, with Windsurf, all these kind of big names that are showing huge success also financially as companies out of it. But when you try it, it does do a lot. So I think at the start it was most like complete. Just complete the sentence. How do you code? You would write a comment essentially of what the code you want to do, and then click enter, and then it will just write the function that does what the comment just said. So people start to kind of code in comments in a sense, right? But it was still quite minimal. And what we're seeing now, kind of like a second phase coming out and becoming more stable, is this kind of tasks. Give me a coding task, right? So I want to create a new button, and I also need to create a new kind of endpoint on my server and bind it all together and write the unit tests and you see it going and going over different files and doing different things all together that complete the task. So that's where we are today, I think, in the assistance world, is more at the task level, but you still need to review it very, very carefully. So it's almost like a lot of my people in my team say it's like working with kind of like a junior developer that is very, very hardworking, very committed, very fast, but they do make a lot of mistakes. So I think that what it feels like is you're still the one making decisions all the time. You're making small decisions and bigger decisions. You just don't find yourself, how do you kind of invert a map to do this and group by that? And you don't do that anymore.
Is it horizontal or vertical? I can't remember.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
You think, and you can get ideas to become code way faster. And that's really, really what's exciting about it. We did develop on top of it so many things, like I mentioned, a bot to do code reviews, which is really cool. And it's also nice because, we have a lot of code reviews, obviously, as we do. If somebody writes code, somebody else needs to review it. But now that we have the bot, it's really interesting to see when people disagree with the bot. And
but is it any different than disagreeing with the guy who sits next to you? Do you know what I mean?
It's not, but that's the beauty of it. So what AI gives you, and we talk about things that are surprising, it allows you to look at things that you couldn't have looked at in scale, to process them in scale.
Sure.
Right? So let me ask you, do people usually agree or disagree with review comments? It's hard to know before AI because I have to actually take those pieces of text and process them to give an answer.
Right.
So now, because we wanted this bot, and we talked about evaluation, so for this bot, I have to have a feedback. Was my comment good or bad? And what was weird is we said, okay, we had a new idea. Let's take all the times when people say a comment is bad and feed it back to the bot. So every time it makes a comment, we show, before you comment, here are a bunch of comments that were bad. Do you really sure you want to comment? Okay? And that actually works really nicely. But what was interesting,
So it's like training a junior guy or a junior code reviewer.
Exactly.
That's
but what
so
was
cool.
interesting is that often we gave him, hey, here's a bunch of good comments and here's a bunch of bad comments. And the bot was like, they are the same. Right? And I'm like, damn, you're right. It is the same.
Right. So
why is this one bad and why is this
now
one
what do you
good?
want to do?
And then we actually go back and we find out like people sometimes like that some of it is like, because you trust the people that say a comment is good or a comment bad really know what they're talking about and like being the source of truth. But also developers vary in what is good and what is bad and how code should be styled. See, that starts to be part of your problem. It's very, very interesting.
But isn't it cool how... And again, I'm not there doing this on a day-to-day basis, but just based on what you're saying, isn't it cool how the interaction with the software is not with the bot that's reviewing the code? It's not much different than the interaction with the guy or the gal that's sitting next to you that's reviewing the code. It's faster. It's at a bigger scale.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and again, because I've seen so many of these technology cycles, we talked about this, right? Linux on the desktop. I mean, I've heard this for 2 decades, right? At some point, people just stop talking about it. But my point is, I've seen so many of these cycles, and at the end of the day, what's always predicted is going to happen is like that humans are going to get eliminated and everyone's going to die and no one's going to have a job. And at the end of the day, what happens is we need more people to be able to do more of this because we can do more now.
Yes.
Do you think that there's less, fear is maybe the wrong word, but less concern from people that are working on these things? They're like, actually, you know what? This is really good for me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Is it different now than it was a year and a half ago?
I totally get. So you're totally right. And every technological kind of like revolution had the same thing. People were worth more. And it's not complicated to understand why. Because if today I can code that generates for the company $100 per hour of my work because of the features I create and whatnot, if I can do double the work, then the same me can now create $200 of value, right? So like, well, however they pay me, the ROI on that payment is now doubled.
Absolutely.
So that's easy math, right?
Yeah.
The question is, it still me personally, the one that's doing the coding?
But that's a training problem, right?
Exactly.
And to me, and again, interrupt me when I'm wrong, but to me, if you're already writing code, you should be indifferent to language and to paradigms and stuff like that. Whether it's Ruby on Rails or C#, you should just be going like, I can do all of this stuff, right? You're multilingual. So it can always be you, I think, if you're willing to do the work to get there.
Exactly, and that was always true in technology, as you said, always.
In kind of
if you say, I'm a developer of type X or Y, you're already kind of doomed yourself.
Yeah, you're gone.
At some point, this will be out. We don't know. Maybe it will be next year, maybe it will be in 10 years, but you will be out. You have to be flexible. Okay. So that's why I feel like it's our responsibility as a company to give this to everyone. Because we want our people to be the ones, surviving or evolutioning into this thing, right?
Because you're going to make a decision yourself. I don't want to do this, right?
Yes.
As opposed to, I can't do it because I don't have access to it.
Exactly.
And you said this at the beginning. One of the key things for a CTO to do is to train and make sure that his staff is up to date, learning and all this other stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the people that are taking advantage, look, at first I get that there is a bit of a,
for sure,
isn't this my job kind of thing, Wasn't this my job? So there's definitely like a fear that comes up. It's doing something that you used to do. And you got paid for. So that's like that knee-jerk reaction of like, wait, that's my job.
Right.
I totally get it. Like I felt it myself as I was playing with it, and I'm like, wait, But I think as you go through that phase and learn to control it, and now you feel you go back to magic, right? Apprentice, like the apprentice, you just wave your hands around, now almost in plain English, and it goes around writing stuff, doing stuff, running stuff, writing tests, and it's like it's very empowering. So but you have to go through that chasm of like initial fear response.
Right, and I use it, like I said, I use this every single day. I'm a better writer today than I was like 3 years ago. I want to make an analogy for you because we've talked about technology cycles, and for people that listen to the show, they've heard this before. Because I think it's a really great example. If you were a horse and buggy driver in the late 1800s, and then somebody invented a car and there were taxis, you didn't lose your job because you could just learn how to drive, right? And if you could afford a horse and buggy at some point, you're going to be able to afford a car. So just learn how to drive.
Exactly.
Because that's going to be the new taxi. They're
100%.
doing the same things.
Yes.
They're just using a different mechanism and a different technology to do it. Figure it out.
Yes.
Right? And we've been doing that again for centuries.
For sure, 100%. I was just playing a game of Civilization 6 because the new one is coming out. And when I thought how much interesting is this, that your units gets upgraded across the ages. So it's exactly like you had the scout, it becomes like a small car. It's the same job. It just evolved, and you have to evolve with it if you want to be the one doing it.
Exactly. Okay, one more question, then I'll let you go. and it's kind of general. What do you think the future of technology and travel is? Like when you look out that 5 years, you're talking about 6 years.
Yes.
What are you looking at?
Yes. So I would say, I think my vision, I think that aligns with the company, is that, look, today, it's not great. OTA companies like what we do, it's not a great experience. I don't love it. I don't enjoy it. I love travel.
Yeah, so
I don't enjoy all the setup I need to do.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not, today I'm going to book hotels. How nice. It's not. It's stressful. I need to compare. I need to make sure the flight aligns with the hotel.
I'm afraid of making a mistake because...
You're afraid of making... People make mistakes all the time.
All the time, but if I make a mistake, I feel like it's fatal today.
Yes. Sometimes
yes,
because you have unrefunded bookings.
And I can't cancel it, and it's just
so hard. And if you want to make a change, now I have to call them, and it doesn't work. And
nobody
sometimes
answers
the airlines and the seat choice, and there's so much stress still to get rid of. So I think that, and we want to go beyond that. So first of all, okay, easy to say, let's make that seamless. Let's make that not painful.
Right.
But why does it have to end there? Right? So what we think is, what I want you to be thinking in the future is not I booked with Agoda, but I travel with Agoda. Right? So during your travel, there's so much we can help. We know you're traveling. We know where you are.
Yep.
We know the business.
Yep.
You're having fun. You're on vacation or maybe a business trip.
Like
you have needs. I know them.
Agoda could have a whole car service that pick people up at the airport because you know when I'm coming in, and you can optimize that way better than a taxi company can because you know who else has booked that same day, going to that same location, going to that same airport.
Exactly. And I know it's going to rain, so I can tell you, hey, let's change that activity, outdoor activity that you booked to something else. Just click here. Just tell me it's good.
Right.
So I want to be a real companion to your travel that makes you feel like the whole thing is way less stressful, and even if things go wrong, then you're covered.
So can we expect, so again, I have one of the largest insurance podcasts in the world, and one of the things that insurance companies have learned over the past 5 years or 6 years, particularly in the insurtech space, is we can write a policy for you that we can give you protection, but that means we know what you're having protected, right? So one of the guys was telling me that during COVID, his car insurer, because his car wasn't being used that often, right? Because he wasn't going out that much, said, you should check your battery. And they provided that service to him. Can we presume that if Agoda is your travel, not your booking engine, but your travel partner, that there'll be services that are going to be developed over the next 3 to 5 years that will then make Agoda more like your travel partner than your travel booker?
Yes, and I think that's where we're actually heading for quite a few years, because it starts with the booking. Because if you book the flights on me, I know where you're going.
Right.
I know the flights and so on. If you book the hotels for me, I know this. If you book the activities on me. So first of all, I need to have those muscles of the different things I can even offer you to do. Right? Once I have those muscles, then I can start, I know more about your vacation, and I can help you, making changes, making decisions, optimizing, whatever works for you, really. Right.
So there was a guy I was talking to in India who was traveling from someplace, I think, to Mumbai to go see a concert, Coldplay. And when he booked his travel, where he booked his travel said, are you going to see Coldplay?
There you go.
And do you want insurance because it's an outdoor show?
Yeah, if there's rain or whatever.
If there's rain or whatever, do you want event cancellation insurance? And he was like, how did they know? But it's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And of course, like the point of us was never to get into your life. Like I don't need to know, who you are and your personal. I don't care. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know about your vacation, so I can help you make it better.
I love it. Idan Zalzberg, the Chief Technology Officer at Agoda. That was awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
Was it good for you?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.